We're up 100% in the last couple of months, Cory. What's behind the move?
Yeah, it really is a spectacular move, and it does seem to be a great deal of speculation. The Bitcoin markets say that a lot of these investments in Bitcoin are coming through other digital currencies, and we see it really across all the digital currencies, not just Bitcoin, but most of it is indeed in Bitcoin. Most of the trading, more trading at least in Bitcoin. But we've seen this dramatic rise in the values of digital currencies really across the board, and it has been very sudden. It's been kind of creeping up as we've seen a lot of the markets creep up. Well, you look at what's gone on, in the last few months, you can really see that sort of doubling in price. It's just astounding. And it does seem to be speculation. The adoption of Bitcoin is absolutely happening. It's every day there's news of another airline or business that's accepting things in Bitcoin. There are stories of cars being purchased with Bitcoin, houses being purchased with Bitcoin. But the rise in the value of the currency is certainly notable. But so is the volatility. The volatility in Bitcoin has been really dramatic. You had a huge move the other day, nearly 20% move down in just the course of about an hour. So the volatility has been there as well.
Yeah, and if it's going to be used more and more as an alternative to a currency, or to buy houses and things, you certainly don't want it to be volatile. So what's the story in terms of regulation and in terms of Bitcoin being accepted on exchanges and all these products that are now sort of getting the green light, right, from regulators?
I think what's interesting here is all the sort of alternatives to Bitcoin, alternative currencies, if you will, and that they're trying to fix some of the fundamental problems with Bitcoin. And one of those is the anonymity. The know your customer rules that are required in securities transactions and banking transactions to prevent things like money laundering and so on. Bitcoin is sort of fundamentally and technologically against. So a lot of these other currencies are trying to solve those issues while maintaining the really interesting elements of blockchain that allow customers to verify identity, keep a record of all transactions encrypted within the currency itself, and therein lies sort of the interesting developments in the alt currencies.
Any idea who might have been responsible for some of the speculation? Any big hedge funds that we know of in there? Any fund managers, or any major investors?
Well, first, let me talk about this chart first. I'll get to that question because it's a great one. But this chart of Bitcoin slowing down, I think this is really important.
Okay.
This is the average confirmation time of how long it takes to complete a transaction. What you can see there is it's taking a lot longer for transactions using Bitcoin to go through the system. And this is a big problem right now. Regardless of what's happening with the price, it's harder to use Bitcoin now than it was even a few months ago. And this is a real vexing problem. The Bitcoin community has tried to solve this by getting together and trying to come up with some technological solutions. But the problem is, within the way that Bitcoin is created are big chunks of code. And with every new coin that is minted, the code is increasingly complex. The result is using those coins is more difficult for the system and slowing down. And that's a really fundamental problem with Bitcoin right now that the Bitcoin community is going to have to solve here. But it might be just too difficult for them to solve. I think that's one of the reasons you see other currencies getting a lot of attraction right now. And it's a problem that some of these people buying Bitcoin right now are going to have to face up to, that if Bitcoin doesn't get easier to use, and if the time of completing a transaction doesn't go down, then the value of those Bitcoins fundamentally are going to have a real problem in the long run.